Howdy, everybody. It's me, Bob Harris, Senior Editor of FootballDiehards.com. Here for the On the Hot Seat session. We're going to unveil the way too early top 12. Because it's never too early to do the way too early stuff, right? Can't wait to do that. We'll touch on a couple things that have been going on around the league. You probably heard there's like some news out there today. A little something happened. We'll let everyone get here. I see Scott Kobe is asking me about that already. So jump into the chat as you see fit. Would love to entertain your questions about pretty much everything. Hey, everybody. Hey, JR. Hey, few two for you. Got to say it right. Hope everyone's doing well. We've got a week until kind of the off week between the Super Bowl. Should be a great Super Bowl, right? Hello, Dame. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Should be a great off week. We can get some other things done. We can pay attention to Tom Brady, give him the due respect that he has earned over the course of his career, or not, depending on if you hate the Patriots. Like I always talk to people, we talk about politics or whatever, and it's like, can you believe they believe this? Everyone just turned into fans, and I cover a sport where the greatest player of all time is also the biggest cheater of all time. So he can be both things, right? Apparently so. So Tom Brady retired again. This time he says for good. And I tend to believe him. Scott Kobe and I were chatting about this in offline earlier, and I think that's the case. I think everyone thinks that's the case. Could things change? Yes. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. Hello, Charles. Thanks for coming. A lot of teams need quarterbacks out there, but this certainly adds to the quarterback carousel intrigue this offseason, as does the Brock Purdy injury. I'll talk about a couple of these things before we get into the way too early top 12. You see it up there, right? It's amazing. So by the way, if you're just tuning in or you don't watch this, I do this all the time. And by all the time, I mean pretty much every Wednesday and Saturday. We may dial that back to just Saturdays in the off season, but we'll work on that, see what the interest level is. You would love to have everyone come around, and we'll find some compelling things to chat about over the course of time. Saturday, hey, Mr. Scampers, glad to see you. My cat, Wally, is sitting right next to me as we speak right now, hoping he doesn't destroy the live stream at some point. He's up to no good. Anyway, so yeah, we'll do this at Wednesdays and Saturdays for now. So count on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Saturdays, we'll probably do it noon Eastern time for the most part. This week, may do another one at 11 because I have an early radio show. Also, you can hear me on the radio, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, that is. 4 days a week. We'll be on Monday, or Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. For the foreseeable future, that'll dial back to probably just Saturdays once we get into past the Super Bowl, but we aren't there yet, so we'll get into that. What do you guys think of that Super Bowl matchup? What did you guys think of the games? I think Patrick Mahomes, Troy Olsen, good to see you, Voice and Fuego. Mr. Scampers says hello, Wally. Behave. Just waiting for him to blow up everything. So last we talked, we were sitting there and kind of I felt like the Bengals would win that game based on the fact that, Patrick Mahomes was playing hurt. Patrick Mahomes had other thoughts, right? Patrick Mahomes is pretty damn good. Also, I felt like the Bengals defense struggled a little more than I thought. Bengals defense has been playing extremely well. Didn't get a lot of pressure on him. But conversely, I thought the Chiefs did a great job of getting pressure on Joe Burrow. We've seen him play under pressure. As Molly is, and that's what he is named after, I am told. I got him as a stray. Somebody found him in their wood pile out back, had a bunch of feral kittens. He was one of them. He moved in, joining Ming the Merciless. I'm hoping Wally doesn't make his YouTube debut. That would not be great. I don't have a lot of control over that, though. He'll decide. But he joined Ming the Merciless, who is not going to join us today because he is too big to get on anything high enough to be seen on camera. So Ming the Merciless, all 30 pounds of him. Anyway, so you can catch me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Well, Monday, Thursday, Fridays, 10 p.m. Saturdays. This week we'll be on at 3 p.m., 3 to 5. We're going to do a Super Bowl pregame show, too, a week from now. We did our first mock draft Monday with Eric Romoff and Jamie Calandro, Mike Dempsey, and myself. We're going to talk about that on Saturday. I may reference it a little bit as we get into the way too early top 12. tonight. Is it ever too early to do the first top 12? Is it too early? When is it too early to jump into the best ballrooms? What do you guys, is everyone in here, Wade, Dame, how soon are you jumping in? When do we start doing these exercises? I'm not waiting. I'm going to jump right into everything. And so we'll kind of go over these top 12s, and we'll do them by position here over the next couple weeks too, and kind of compare them over the course of time. We'll also be doing some mock drafts here. We'll set up some sleeper mock drafts so you all can jump in and get in on the fun, and I can critique your drafts, except for Dame. She'll crush me. Yes, I'm still jealous of her huge Scott Fishbowl finish. Anyway, so a couple newsy items before we get too far lost in the sauce. Brock Purdy injured in the against Philadelphia Eagles. Hassan Reddick wrenched his elbow, or helped him wrench his elbow. He's still deciding whether to have the surgery. It won't be the full Tommy John surgery, a full rebuild. They're saying just a repair. It sounds like however they do this, the plan is to have him back in about 6 months. Kyle Shanahan said today they're pretty confident. They want him to get the surgery. He's getting second opinions. The team doctors want him to get the surgery and get it over with, get back in the mix. Either way, they'll have him and Trey Lance. Now, I thought going in, we have talked about this on the live stream previous to this, and my opinion hasn't really changed. I think Brock Purdy earned the de facto starting role. This injury obviously puts that in question. They still have Trey Lance. I've talked to multiple beat writers over the course of time. I know Michael Silver at the San Francisco Chronicle reported on this as well. Kind of the belief is Brock Purdy is made himself an extension of Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan likes that, right? He's going to stick with this guy if he can. The elbow will be determinative. If not, they'll have Trey Lance. Shanahan ruled out the possibility of Jimmy Garoppolo returning, so he'll be out in that that quarterback carousel rolling around as we get the things sorted out, along with Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr and others. We'll see what happens with Ryan Tannehill. I don't know. There's plenty of intrigue to come, and we'll save that for when the intrigue starts happening. But for now, we've got this San Francisco situation. So, based on what people are telling me that, cover the team closely, talk to people in the building every day, the 49ers really like being there with two quarterbacks they believe are capable in Brock Purdy and Trey Lance of being their starter. They have both of them under contract for just under $10 million. This is the pathway to success in the NFL, right? Cheap quarterback, rookie contract, build around them, put high-end talent. This was the path we learned from the Seattle Seahawks many years ago. I want to say 2012. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody help me with that in the chat. The Seahawks had signed Matt Flynn, the former Packers quarterback, on a very narrow band of success. I think he had one really good game. They paid him a ton of money. Then they drafted Russell Wilson. Started hearing in camp, wow, Russell Wilson is competing. Next thing you know, Russell Wilson's starting, and the rest is history, except for last year. By the way, new coach is coming in. We'll talk about that for a second, too. But Jimmy Garoppolo is the Raiders. Scott Kobe wants to know, do I think Jimmy Garoppolo is the Las Vegas Raiders' top quarterback target? It makes sense, right? I mean, if we're connecting all the dots between all the people who are associated and Tom Brady is no longer one of the dots, Jimmy Garoppolo's dot got a little bigger, right? I think so. I think that's a fair assessment. But maybe Aaron Rodgers still in the mix. So, right, and they already have the high-end talent around them. They just have to keep them. That's the thing for San Francisco. They're in a really good spot. And, whichever these quarterbacks, I remain skeptical on Trey Lance because we haven't seen him do anything. What Brock Purdy has done is exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants him to do, right? Execute the offense as it's called, make the reads that are called for in the plays, find the open man, hit the open man, and not screw up a lot, right? So I don't know. I do feel like he's a de facto starter, barring the injury keeping that from happening. I think he will be. Trey Lance will be the backup. Either way, we'll have plenty of time to sort that out. So with a new coach, should we keep Russell on our radar for QB1? Let's talk about that. Sean Payton, I'm told he's very good at this. Interesting, some conflicting reports on how this played out in Denver, where the Broncos really wanted DeMeco Ryans, who ended up with Houston, the team he played for, the team that drafted him anyway. And he was a defensive rookie of the year, I want to say, for that organization. And he really, the Broncos made a second run at him. Sounds like they talked to Jim Harbaugh. And I don't think this is an indication that they didn't want Sean Payton. It's just if you heard what Sean Payton's being paid right now, it's a lot. I think 17 to 20 million is what they're saying. Plus the draft picks they had to get up to land him because he was still the Saints still had his rights since he retired last year. He was still under contract. So, I'm guessing that's the only reason he wasn't at the top of Denver's list all along. Super expensive, not just in cash outlay. And this is a whole new level of pay. I mean, this is a high level of pay for a coach. 17 to 20 million is lots of money. So, but hey, there's no salary cap for coaches. So this was going to happen at some point. The problem is if you fire him. I know Matt Rule and the Panthers are about to go to war. We talked about this before, but in case you're just tuning in, Frank Reich, hired by the Carolina Panthers, as David Tepper says he wants to end the good old boy network by hiring a good old boy. I don't know. Anyway, interesting. So Cardinals still looking at their head coaching possibilities. Colts still looking at theirs. A lot of names floating around out there. We'll get to some of that stuff here over the course of the coming weeks as these guys are hired. They start building their coaching staffs around them. That's going to be interesting in Houston. They're going to need a quarterback there. Denver, not so much. They have a quarterback. And so what does Sean Payton do for Russell Wilson? I don't think anything bad, right? I don't think anything bad. I don't know if you two, for you, this is something where, I mean, do I want to keep him as a Russell Wilson? The question was, so with a new coach, should we keep Russell on our radar for quarterback one? I don't know if I should keep him on for quarterback one. I don't want to pay that price, right? But if I get him as a quarterback two and I feel really good, look at Deuce Staley, Mr. Scampers, digging deep. Deuce Staley heading to join Frank Reich in Carolina. That could be a detriment to the Detroit Lions, where he currently plies his trade, unless he's been one of the issues for DeAndre Swift. I know that they've kind of had, Deuce Staley has had some expectations he put on DeAndre Swift in terms of, playing through injuries, understanding the difference between injury and pain, all those kind of old school things that probably aren't that cool, but that matter when that's what your coach wants. So we'll see, but I expect a strong rushing attack. They're going to need to figure out their quarterback situation there. The Commanders need to figure out their quarterback situation. A lot of teams need to. Atlanta Falcons say they're fine with their quarterbacks. Are they? I don't know. Desmond Ridder. It sounds like, I've seen reporting that says they are, but the Tennessee Titans, are they happy with where they're at? Sounds like the Miami Dolphins are happy now that Tua Tagovailoa is out of the concussion protocol. Good for him. Took a long time till today, apparently. That seems like a long time to me. Giants have started contract talks with Saquon Barkley. That's good news. Sounds like they'll get with Daniel Jones as well at some point. Brandon Beane worried about the hits that Josh Allen's taking, not worried about anything else, the interceptions or whatever. I think they expect him to be fine. I would expect him to be that as well. I think he'll, Josh Allen's the least of my worries, and we'll have quarterback talk over the coming, time. Aaron Rodgers still needs some time to decide his future. Not sure what he wants to do, but it's probably going to involve the New York Jets. Let's go ahead and connect that thought, right? It seems like that's pretty easy. He talked about his weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show is like, gold. We get all kinds of information. One, we found out he's not ready to make a decision. Two, we found out that he thinks that there are already conversations ongoing involving the Packers and maybe other teams, or at least, there's talk out there and he's not part of it, which he finds interesting, which means I think he does not find it interesting at all. He finds it irritating. Anyway, but the New York Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett, the former Denver Broncos coach, formerly a Green Bay Packers offensive coordinator. His great distinction as an offensive coordinator, his great distinction as an offensive coordinator, if you go out, I want to say go check out JJ Zachariason's Twitter timeline. He laid it out there pretty good. It's been a pretty miserable run of offensive coordinating for Nathaniel Hackett, just in general, except for the couple of years that he had Aaron Rodgers under him. I don't know I don't think he was calling the plays then either. I think it was Matt LaFleur calling the plays then. But anyway, so everyone's connecting those dots, and we'll see how that plays out. Scott wants to know, DeAndre Swift, he missed out on your top 12. Where are you comfortable drafting him? Yes, he did miss out on my top 12. Didn't just miss out. He missed out. I'll be comfortable drafting him fourth, fifth round. I mean, and I'll probably still wait. And if Jamal Williams is still there, I'll probably draft him instead, like many rounds later, and he'll outproduce DeAndre Swift again. I just don't have a comfort level with Swift. I don't want to overpay for him. I know last year he was just outside the top 12. I think that's what you're referring to, Scott. I think most of us were drafting him early in the second round. I saw him go in the first round a couple times. The problem this year was it wasn't just a two-way split. It turned into a three-way split, right? Justin Jackson worked his way into the mix. So I have concerns about the workload. I'm still chasing volume, as you'll see in my way too early top 12. Scott and I have talked about this. I've talked about this on the live stream here as well. I'm going to be investing more heavily in receiving assets probably early on. And I kind of worked, both ends of that on the mock draft Mondays on the Football Diehards radio program. We have four of us drafting, so we get 3 teams each or whatever. So you can kind of experiment, and that's kind of the fun of drafting early, right? Mock drafting or best ball mock drafting. Ooh, I did take Amon-Ra St. Brown, by the way, very early in the mock. I took him in the first pick of the second round to join Tyreek Hill because I thought they were. I had the team where I had the 12-1, 2-1, 1-12, 2-1, and I think that's a good combo, right? Where you can, and I think on the Fantasy Pros consensus rankings right now, he's a little lower than that. And so maybe I reach, but there's a really good argument for him. I think when I unveil my way too early top 12, I think like the top 5, I will probably draft in various drafts at 1 overall, right? And so the thing about the first round, I've talked about this before as well, is you're drafting everyone there at their ceiling. You need them all to deliver. And you're drafting them there because you can't draft them anywhere else. They're not getting out of the first round, no matter how much you would like them to or how much you want to stick other guys in the first round. That's not where they're going. There's going to be a certain group of players that are going in the first round. You need to identify the guys outside the first round. We're going to work on that too over the course of the offseason, who are going to rise up and outproduce their value. But in the meantime, we'll do that way too early top 12. But Swift, I mean, I'm probably not going to get a lot of shares of him because I don't know that he'll last that long. I want to say, where did he go in this mock? Swift. He went in the third round. Pretty late in the third round, which probably means I'm not going to get a lot of shares of him. I would like to get him maybe at the turn, heading into 4. I mean, he's going to have some high upside games, but it's going to be high variance. Amon-Ra St. Brown is not going to have high variance games. He's going to be rock solid every damn week. We'll see what Jameson Williams means to, for that. I don't think it's a limiting factor though. It might be an additive factor, right? Having, like DJ Chark was threatening defenses deep. So is Jameson Williams going to. Where's DJ Chark going? I keep thinking Dallas. Anyway, we've kind of touched on the news and had a good time here. If you have any questions about the game coming up, or if you have any thoughts on that, I wanted to hear what everyone thought about the outcomes. I think the Eagles, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion when they didn't have a quarterback who could throw the football anymore for San Francisco that it was going south. San Francisco is going to be a very good team, but man, what bad luck they've had at quarterback, man. Unbelievable. Scott Kobe is warming up to Kelsey as a top 3 pick in drafts. Is that crazy? That is absolutely not crazy. And if you listen to myself, or Mike Dempsey is pushing, I'll give him credit, my co-host on Sirius. I mean, he'll take him 1-1. He did in this mock draft just to make his point. But I mean, you can make that point. I'll talk about him in a second. But I think you can make that point. If you're looking for leverage over the field, then it's still an important thing at each position. Nobody does that like Kelsey, so we'll talk about that. I guess I'll go ahead and start talking about that now since we don't have many questions. We've kind of covered the news. I don't know if you want to get a little deeper into the coaching changes. I'm not really sure. We'll see what Ryans means in Texas. There's a lot of to the Houston Texans. There's a lot of moving pieces there, right, that we have to sort out, like who's going to be the quarterback, who's going to be the offensive coordinator, a variety of things. How are they going to handle this? Ryan's a defensive coach, so we'll see how that plays out over time, and we'll see if we'll see. And by the way, before I forget, John Lobb has started putting up his rookie content on the website. So go to footballdiehards.com. I'll have Lobb on the live stream here at some point. We'll start working on the rookie stuff. But But Lob is the quarterbacks. His quarterback scouting is up on the website. That's FootballDiehards.com. He'll have the other positions rolling out. John does amazing work. If you don't follow him on Twitter, Gridiron Skull, like Gridiron Scholar, Gridiron Skull 91 on Twitter. Go check him out. Has a ton of great content on his Twitter feed always, and also right now, FootballDiehards.com. His first round of rookie positional assessments, the quarterbacks. And it'll be exciting. I'm excited. I hope you are too. All right, so let's start diving into these, the way too early top 12 rankings. Now I think it is time. Did I miss any questions? Am I baiting you a little bit? Am I making you wait? All right, let's go ahead and do this. We'll start out with number one. 6 weeks into the NFL season, the Panthers traded one Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers. At the time of the deal, the Niners were 3-3, struggling to find any consistency on offense. They found it. They won 12 straight after McCaffrey became the starter. Brock Purdy was part of that, right? They lost in the NFC title game, of course. But over the final 6 weeks of the season, let's focus on that. McCaffrey ran 101 times, 505 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns, caught 27 passes, 262 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Great 3-down skill set. Look, he's going to share. They're going to use somebody, Elijah Mitchell, maybe. Maybe they'll give Deebo Samuel more carries. I'm not worried, not scared. Here's why. Kyle Shanahan. He knows what side his bread is buttered on. Before McCaffrey, the Niners ranked 19th in the NFL in points scored per game at 20.3, 18th in yards per game at 340.2, and expected points added minus 0.05. After McCaffrey's arrival, they ranked second in scoring, 29.8 points per game, fourth in yards, 379, and second in expected points added, 7.4. That's a big change, right? He averaged better still for fantasy managers down the stretch, in particular those final 6 game stretch. Over the final 10 games of the regular season, he averaged well over 20 points per game. That was the highest on the field. Look, again, I could make an argument for any of my top 5 here as the number 1 pick overall. I would make it for Christian McCaffrey. There was a time where he gave you player and a half upside. I don't think he does that now, not with a split, but he gives you a super solid running back 1 with a great deal of upside. He had at least 25 fantasy points in 5 games down the stretch, down those final 10 games, averaged over 22 points per game. That's pretty good. On the season, I want to say he averaged just slightly less than my number 2. His total was, over the course of the season, about 18 points per game, using a fairly generic system here, by the way, just a PPR scoring system. And he was only outdone on the season by my number 2 pick, Austin Eckler. So Austin Eckler at 19.2 points per game, just slightly ahead of Christian McCaffrey. So here's the thing. Austin Eckler finished with the 2022 regular season 3 straight 4-catch games. That gives him another 100-catch season, 107 to be specific. 722 yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, ran for 900-plus yards for a second straight season. Look, that's a knock on him, right? As he doesn't like the big workload. He wants to share it. They don't have anyone for him to share it with. They keep trying, but they can't get there. Last year, though, 2021, he ran for 12 touchdowns. That was 9 more than he'd ever run for before in his career. Regression seems certain, except to Austin Eckler, right? So he runs for 13 touchdowns this year to go with the 5 scoring catches. I would expect some regression again this year, and maybe he can beat that out, right? Maybe he can outdo that. Maybe he can continue to beat the regression monster. It tends to come, but it didn't come this year. But I think that's the thing that separates for me him from McCaffrey. The difference between 1 and 2 is I do expect touchdown regression. I expected it this year. I didn't get it. I expect it this year, right? So we'll see what happens. Again, new offensive system to some degree. Kellen Moore coming in as offensive coordinator. Justin Herbert, though, great quarterback who will be looking Austin Eckler's way on the regular, as he has up to this point of his career. Has some great pieces around him. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. We'll see if Gerald Everett. He's kind of a piece that's all right around him. But I think these two, if you're drafting running backs early, these are the two I'm focused on. Now, could you make an argument for somebody else as your number one, perhaps a receiving asset? I'm going to make an argument right now that might not be the one that everyone makes. Number 3 for me is Cooper Kupp. I know, sacrilegious. I'm not the young guy, the old guy. Well, number one, I'm an old guy. I love old guys. Got to support my brother. But through 9 games, Cooper Kupp, the 2021 Offensive Player of the Year, by the way, well on his way to another huge season. Suffered a severe ankle sprain in Week 10. At the time of his injury, though, he led the NFL, led the team with 75 receptions, 812 yards, 6 touchdowns. Goes on to miss the final 8 games of the regular season. He still led the team, the Rams, in all those categories. 98 targets were the only one that he came up short, just behind Tyler Higbee, 108. He missed 8 games. Still the leading receiver for the second straight year. To me, he's consistent. We're going to talk about other receivers here. You know who they are. And I think they're great. And I think you can make an argument for those receivers being ahead of Cooper Kupp, right? Easily. But Cooper Kupp, to me, has that consistency. We didn't see it with some of those other receivers. I'll talk about them in a second. Where is everyone? How crazy is this? He was superb once again. But I think the difference for me, I would have gone with one of those other receivers, to be named shortly, had Sean McVay moved on. Matthew Stafford's back. I think he'll be looking his way again. Maybe Allen Robinson comes on a little bit, figures out the offense. But to me, the key was Sean McVay coming back. And hopefully they work on that offensive line, guys. Fix that. I know they effed them picks, so they don't have a lot of capital to work with. But, man, there's a new salary cap. It's really high. Pay some offensive linemen. You're already paying these other guys. So I'll be interested to hear the comments on this. I think Cooper Kupp has been consistently high end. And, maybe you're building your roster a little different way. You want, you're not looking maybe for as much of a steady Eddie as a super high-end guy because you have plans to get maybe the steady Eddie later. Maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown, which I did that in the first mock draft. But I think you can make a pretty strong argument for Cooper Kupp, and I think I just did. But strong arguments for some others as well. I'll go on to number 4 right now and go with the guy that Scott Kobe was asking about, Travis Kelce. 33 years old. At some point, he's going to fall off the cliff. I know this. I realize this. There is no sign of that yet. Also, so Mr. Campers, going back to LA, no, not a lot. I mean, I think, I'm glad that Sean McVay wanted him. And we're talking about Mike LaFleur, the former Jets coordinator, who didn't apparently get along well. I've talked to some people in New York, didn't get along well with the kids, even though he's a kid. The brother of Matt LaFleur. But I think, the offensive coordinator seems like a kind of a behind the front lines position there. But I think working with McVay kind of maybe alleviates any of the issues that he had or was having with the Jets. Having that strong veteran offensive coach there maybe dials that back. So no, does not mean a ton to me other than it was McVay's guy. But Kelce, super strong season. Clear target for Patrick Mahomes. Without Tyreek Hill during the regular season, Kelce had career high 110 receptions, 1,338 yards, 12 touchdowns. And he's continued that on to the postseason, been phenomenal. So the pluses for Travis Kelce, and I'll go to the average scoring per game here. And again, I'm using a fairly generic point, PPR league, one that we use up for all our serious drafts. Points per game at tight end. We're not extremely high. The top scorer per game, 15.6 points per game, Travis Kelce. Who is next? TJ Hawkinson at 10.6. That makes Travis Kelce a player and a half. Right? George Kittle kind of rose up down the stretch a little bit. Maybe I'll like George Kittle again, fine. Mark Andrews went down from, I think, his 17 per game last year down to 10. He was, relatively human this year. Still think he looks like a great player. We'll see what the Ravens do. But Travis Kelce, so the question earlier was, could you argue Travis Kelce being a top 3 pick? I think you can. I think you absolutely can. I think you can make an argument for Travis Kelce 1 overall. And Mike Dempsey makes it more strenuously than I do. I think any of these 4 that I have up here could be the number 1 pick overall, and probably will be for me, depending on the drafts. I'll try to diversify a little bit. In past years, I've tended to stick with 1, and maybe 2, just to just to give it a little bit in case the one kind of petered out. Well, maybe I do that with more guys this year. And so let's go ahead and throw up number 5 here, just because I think he is also in the conversation as the wide receiver 1. Hell, we could probably take that all the way through 6, to be honest with you. We'll go with Justin Jefferson. The 20th pick overall in the 2020 draft. Somewhere Jalen Reagor's going. His teammate now, Jalen Reagor, who was drafted 1 pick ahead of him by the Eagles, by the way. Coming off another career year, seems to do that every year. Caught a league-leading 128 passes, 1,809 yards, 8 touchdowns, 106 receiving yards per game was a career high as well. So why is he not number 1? Why do I not like him as much as I like Cooper Kupp at the moment? And look, these are going to be fluid, right? There could be developments that change my mind here. None of these are chiseled into stone just yet. These are scratched lightly with pencil. So one of the issues was teams down the stretch found ways, or at least decided, hey, we can, we're willing to take the risk of, I don't know, TJ Hawkinson rose his value, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, Dalvin Cook. We'll let one of those guys beat us, but we're not letting Justin Jefferson beat us. And it seemed to work pretty well, right? They were able to shut him down. Now, I'm sure the offensive brain trust, Kevin O'Connell in particular, will be working to, come up with something. So if we're looking at average points per game last year, I like to look at average points per game. Cooper Kupp was number 1. Justin Jefferson was number 2 at 18.1 points per game. That's pretty damn good. And he had some huge games. 35 points week 1, 26 points, 24 points in week 4 and 5, 23 points in week 9, 25 in week 12, 28 in week 14, 24 in 15, 25 in week 16, week 17 and 18, 3 and 6. Weeks 2 and 3, 8 and 3. Right? The weeks 11, 5. There were a lot of single-digit totals in there, and that doesn't mean he's not good. It just means the defenses are 2 things. Defenses have figured out ways to contain him, and also that's kind of the focus. He's the focal point of the offense. There are maybe weeks when he's not, and he can be taken out of games. And whether it's teams forcing them to run, their defense was horrible this year. If their defense is better, will they be able to run a little more? So again, we're splitting hairs here. But for me, Cooper Kupp slightly over Justin Jefferson. And if Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 1 overall this year, I'm not surprised in the least. And that brings us to number 6, who I think probably could be in the conversation as well. And maybe is the not overlooked, that's wrong-headed. Jamar Chase, right, is another guy. I mean, you look at him down the stretch, just in general, right? They only needed 12 games to get 1,046 yards, 9 touchdowns. He added phenomenal totals in the postseason as well. Came up with 220 yards, 2 more touchdowns in 3 playoff games before they're knocked out. One of the arguments here is that Chase as a rookie was super high end, had some really high spike games, but needed time to figure out the offense. Conversely, the argument is Zach Taylor needed time to figure out the best ways to use him, and you saw it this year. And this was the difference between him and Justin Jefferson. There were games where the opponents adjusted to the deep threat or tried to shut Jamar Chase down as a deep threat. They just turned him into a damn possession receiver and let him make some plays, right? So the Bengals turned him, he worked him in the middle of the field, asked him to break tackles. He did all that. Is the Jefferson at 5 a byproduct of seeing who is going to be the wide receiver 2 in Minnesota? That is part of it, Scott Kobe. I think the pieces around him anyway, whether it's, who is or who isn't right now, I think the pieces around him are one of the reasons why opponents are able to lock in on him. That's harder to do for Jamar Chase, right? With T. Higgins there, essentially another wide receiver 1 capable type player. And so I think that makes it a little more difficult to try to shut Jamar Chase down. And in addition to that, what I just said, Zach Taylor, to his credit, man, really came up with ways. And coming back from his injury, I want to say in week 12? Came off that hip injury. He was dominant. His target share was up well over 30%. Nobody could stop him. What did they do? They were throwing the ball over the middle. They didn't go deep all the time. They didn't use him as just a huge big play guy. They used him as almost a possession type receiver with super high end playmaking ability. So again, top 6. think any of them could be, your number one pick. I could see myself at various points. I think in Dynasty, if you're comparing Chase with Jefferson, for me it's Chase because I know who his quarterback's going to be for the foreseeable future. I don't know who Jefferson's is, right? So, do I remember Roy Akers? Yes, because I drafted him. JR1616 wants to know. And it was a pretty reasonable price, I want to say. Where did he go? Maybe he didn't go. I thought he did. Yeah, he went in round 6 to me. So and look, and I thought that was a steal, right? And we'll see how that goes. But he's certainly worked his way back into the conversation. There is a super high end running back too, I think. And if you're drafting, receiving assets early, there's something to be said for having guys like Akers still around, kind of like a last year's Josh Jacobs. He's not going to make it that long this year. All right, everybody. So where are you drafting these top 6? Put in the comments. By the way, hit the like button or the dislike button. I have not yet disliked myself, so I will do that now. And again, subscribe to the channel if you're not. It's not hard. You'll get notifications of all these live streams, and you can come in and get in on the fun. Again, we'll have you all take part in various mock drafts. 6 rounds sounds good for Akers. I agree. Scott wants to know, do I foresee myself taking Kelsey at 1 in the best ball and seeing how your team shakes out? Definitely. Dempsey did that in this mock draft. I'll cover that on Saturday if you want to come back for that. And we'll be doing more mock drafts. I think we're having Dempsey and I will be hosting and participating in the first host draft for Sirius the night after the Super Bowl. So Monday night, the 13th, we'll be doing that on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, 10 p.m. So you can hear what all the hosts want to do. Scott Kobe will go as high as Chase at number 2. Scampers, Dame, where are you going? And Dame, how high should Amon-Ra St. Brown be? This is my question. Because I'm kind of with you. I feel like, drafting him early in the second round, I'm going to be okay. I don't think people are going to be taking him in the first, and maybe it's going to depend on where I draft in the first round. I want to say the consensus ranking for him right now, what is it? Where's he at? Amon-Ra St. Brown is 25th overall. So I jumped way up, and I'm not feeling bad about it. I feel like this is like a low ranking. He's behind T. Higgins. He's behind DeAndre Swift, behind Mark Andrews, behind Breece Hall, Najee Harris, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb. So I felt really fortunate to get him to pair him up with Tyreek Hill because I think they are complementary. Something that I like to do, and I'm sure many of you do. Scampers 201 isn't bad for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Something I like to think about when I'm building rosters is you can have a risky roster with risky players without having a risky roster, right? So if you think maybe Tyreek Hill, middle of the second round, I'll never 101 next year. Dwayne McFarland out there is somewhere shaking his fist, going, "Yes, 101 this year." I don't think McFarland's advocating for that, but no bigger supporter of Amon-Ra St. Brown than him. And he's not wrong in everything he says. It's totally true. But I think you can, in this draft, I went Tyreek Hill 1, and if you think he's a little volatile and he has some down games and you need to kind of smooth that out, a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, pairing him up with that, or, a Keenan Allen or someone who's more of a steady Eddie. Safety paired with Spice. Scampers knows how to do it. Scott Kobe was on Devonta Smith last offseason because of the A.J. Brown trade. This year, Amon-Ra St. Brown is my wide receiver 7 in his rankings. I think that's fair. I think you can make that argument. We'll get into the positional rankings here in the coming weeks because I'm interested to see where some of these guys shake out. And I'm going to try and be a little more aggressive with the wide receivers. So let's dive into the second half of my way too early top 12. We started out with McCaffrey, Eckler, Kupp, Kelsey, Jefferson, Chase. Where do we go next? Who's up? Is it going to be more receivers? Are we going to go running backs? Number 7, Saquon Barkley. Look, he finally delivered. And I'm going to confess, for you taking a stud wide receiver's top 3 rounds, I think there's an argument for that, right? I don't want to play zero RB, but definitely hero RB. If I want a hero, maybe it's Saquon Barkley. He was a hero this year. By the way, I was happy to see they got talks going with the Giants. Maybe that's part of why I like him here. I was off. I was not let's just say this. I wasn't off. I just didn't want to pay the freight to get Barkley last year. I thought he was going too high. I thought the New York Giants offense was going to get better. I didn't think it would be fantastic. It got better than I thought. I can say that. I'm Bob Harris. So this offense was more improved than I expected. I think Daniel Jones demonstrated his ability to matriculate the ball down the field with Brian Dable at the helm of this offense. And I think Saquon Barkley saw the same. The average points per game were great. His best season since 2019 in that regard. I want to say it was, I have this right in front of me. Saquon Barkley is 16.2 in this. Depending on your scoring system, could have been a little higher. There were some games he didn't show up. It got a little beat up. I think in weeks 11, weeks 12, 4 and 3. But man, started off the season with a 30-point game, 11, 21, 18, 19, 17, 16, 14, 23. Consistently solid through 10 weeks. Then he got a little beat up. Then he picked it back up towards the end, 17, 21, 23. Had a stinker in week 6 and week 17. Not a good week to have that, by the way. But I think the reason he may be ahead of some other backs that I'm going to talk about here that will add into my top 12 is his receiving equity. He is a big part of the passing attack, a very versatile player. The key for me, though, was he regained his ability, something we hadn't seen for a couple of years, to break off the big plays. That was what was missing prior to that, right? He was just not the runs of 10 plus, 20 plus, wasn't doing that. Last year he did that. Hello, Wally. Wally's about to come into the live feed, everybody. Scampers, calm down. Some of the comments here. Dame, I'd have Chase at 5, moving ahead of Kelsey. Justin Jefferson is her number 1. And again, I think those are perfectly defensible. I mean, again, I probably, I think there will be times where I draft all these guys at number 1. And I've talked about drafting receiving assets early. I think McCaffrey and Austin Eckler are receiving assets, right? I think that's why they're at the top of my receiving heap this year. Team one quarterback Dave. Not sure what that means, JR. So we have David Tyler. I'd have your 2, 3, 4, 6 plus Mahomes. We keep 4 players. Which 4 would you keep? Oh, you have these. Wow, David Tyler. So he has Eckler, Kupp, Kelsey, and Chase plus Mahomes. What 4 would you keep? Oh my gosh. I'd probably keep the 4 position players and take my chances at quarterback. I know Mahomes is great, but there'll be other quarterbacks coming along. Ooh, that's a tough position to be in. What's everyone else doing there? Are you throwing the quarterback back in and hanging on to those super high-end assets at the other positions? I guess if this is a keeper league, not a dynasty, so because you're obviously having to throw players back in. Maybe it depends on how long you get to keep them, but I'm probably throwing the quarterback. Wait. Yeah, so Dame is talking about this, the approach in best ball where you're playing a ton of drafts, and I think sometimes it's easy to be cavalier about this when I'm discussing it on the radio or here on the live streams. I'm going to do a few hundred drafts, right? I think some of you in here will as well. You can diversify, and you can, especially early on, you can test and see which things work out. Like if I take Travis Kelce first overall, who am I getting at that 2-3 turn, right? That's going to be a difference. So I'm going to start figuring those things out over the course of time. And I tend to like to be on the ends, whether it's 1 or 12. I like those turnarounds. I feel like I gain ground there. So, but we'll see what the pieces are, and that's going to be part of the puzzle as we put this together and figure out. And if you're in a lot of drafts, it's very helpful. I advocate for this, and I hopefully will start up some mock drafts with all of you. I love doing these. We set them up on Sleeper. We invite you in. You come draft up teams. We usually do it in an hour. Goes really quick, and I will sit here and make snotty comments about all your plays. It'll be great. You'll love it. Scott Kobe would throw Cooper Kupp back in based on Kupp has the same situation as Jefferson, who's the 2+ the coming off a torn ACL. Not a torn ACL, it was an ankle injury. So If it was an ACL, I'd be with you, but it was an ankle injury. Anyway, you know, I like for me, and maybe you guys disagree. Put this out there: quarterback is a replaceable position for me. Like Patrick Mahomes is great. I do want one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks this year. But maybe I don't have to invest to get, Mahomes. Maybe it depends on who else I think is getting thrown in. David, do you have any idea who the quarterbacks that will be available are? Maybe that'll be partly how we determine that. Anyway, Saquon Barkley, number 7. Not sure when you have to decide, David, but it might be Eckler if some mocks are right with Bijan to Chargers. Bijan Robinson, that guy. It's like every year the Chargers swing and miss at that second running back, right? The guy that they want, the Melvin Gordon piece that's been missing from that offense since Melvin Gordon wasn't it. That's right. I am thinking of Hall and Javonte. Yep, absolutely. Yes, both of those guys had the ACLs. Breece Hall, I drafted him, I want to say at 21 in the initial mock. And I felt pretty good about it. I think, even if he misses a little time early, I'm probably going to be okay with that. He was phenomenal. Breece Hall looked like he was heading for Rookie of the Year category. Anyway, number 8. I suppose it's time to unveil another one. I'm going to go with the old war horse, Derrick Henry. Another standout season, huge points per game. 4 seasons in a row at, I want to say 19 points per game. Let me just look real quick so I don't say something stupid, which is usually right. Well north of 18 points, 4 straight seasons. And there are going to be changes there. I get it, right? And he's getting older. I get that too. He's 29, and at some point running backs are going to fall off the cliff. The offensive line needs help. I don't know what the quarterback situation is. I don't know what the coaching situation is. Henry, though, there are no concerns about him. I mean, I didn't see signs of him falling off. He still had the breakaway runs. This, I feel like, is my most controversial pick here, just because of his age. There are some other backs I like, and I'll mention at least one of them here. And maybe I'll end up, as I start drafting, taking receivers ahead of him. Maybe part of this will be, let's see where he is on the consensus rankings right now. Because if I can get a bargain on him, I want to say he's not much of a bargain. He's going at 8. Going right where I have him. Damn it. No discounts. So Mr. Scamper says, I won't be doubting Henry ever again. Look, he is built differently. And, the fear with running backs more so than, let's say, with Travis Kelce is they tend to fall off the cliff quickly, right? When it happens, when everything goes off the rails, it goes off the rails pretty quickly. Maybe we'll see what they do with the offensive line there. That'll be interesting. But I'm with you. I'm not doubting him. I didn't doubt him last year. I wish I had more shares of him. I won the Kings Classic auction draft title based primarily on his efforts, although I did make a great trade. Thank you, Dave Richard, to land Austin Eckler and add him to that team. So there was good news for me there. But Henry carried me over the course of the season. If you look at his weekly totals, I mean, just the workload is what you're after. I mean, I still chase volume. And there was it was a slow start, 8 and 9 point games to start, but then 24, 22, 26, 16, 36, 24, 7, 25. This is the scoring I'm after, folks. And down the stretch, even, when the games mattered, they sat him out week 17, I get it, so you would have had, and I did have to make an adjustment, and I was able to overcome that. But he had 18 points prior to that, 24 points the week before that, 19, carrying me through the playoffs. I don't know who the new offensive coordinator is going to be, but I cannot imagine him not having a workload similar as long as he's capable of holding up to it. Scott Kobe, I see Henry as a 15 points to 16 point per game next season at worst. I think that's fair. Number 9. Let's dig back into the receiving assets. Tyreek Hill. Tyreek is a freak. Had issues at quarterback all season long, right? Tua, Teddy Bridgewater, Skylar Thompson, still career highs in catches, 119 targets, 170 receiving yards, 1,710, had 8 touchdowns. His speed, sets him apart. Ask him. He'll tell you. He'll race you. I guess, the hope here, is he could be maybe deliver even better numbers if Tua Tagovailoa can make it through a full season. I think that's questionable. I don't know, given the environment we live in when we're looking at, the concussion issues. I mean, the league is very sensitive to this. And look, the league is sensitive to this because they should be sensitive to this also because they just paid out $1 billion in a court settlement because they didn't deal with concussions properly in the past. Money matters to this league, and they'll treat this as such. But look, he got it done with a variety of quarterbacks, and you wonder if maybe Mike McDaniel didn't see enough in Skylar Thompson. They were really committed to Tua. Again, if you didn't see it at the top of this program here, the top of the live stream, I mentioned he just came off the concussion protocol, cleared today. So good for him. Seems like it took a while. Probably being very cautious. No need to play him in the Pro Bowl, whatever that game is they play there. But I do think that, Tyreek Hill has demonstrated his ability in this offense. So I'm more playing the scheme and his ability. And he was wide receiver 2 this season. I mean, he was really good. Right, so I might be overlooking. Am I downplaying his abilities too much? Are my fears or my concerns about the quarterback situation too big? I want to remind everyone last year where we were drafting players like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Amari Cooper, based on our fears about the quarterback situation. It's not like they don't have a quarterback. It's just not an ideal quarterback, and sometimes not ideal turns into pretty damn good, says Geno Smith. They tried to write him off. He didn't write back. Tyreek Hill, number 9. JR1616, when I first started playing fantasy, you were playing serious catch-up if you didn't draft 1 or 2. Emmett and Jerry Rice, these 9 guys are all pretty even. I would agree. I mean, but I think that's something we're seeing in the NFL, the level of talent across the board in the NFL. I talk about in college, you see players who really stand out. You think, wow, that guy's going to be great in a pro. Well, in college, maybe the difference between the levels of talent is 5, 10%, maybe closer to 5. In the NFL, everyone's like in 1%, right? The best guys are maybe 1% more talented than the guys that aren't those guys. So, I mean, it's a pretty high bar for these guys to play. So let's get to number 10 here. And there are serious questions about this. Devontae Adams, I realize we don't know who his quarterback's going to be. Still surpassed 1,500 yards for the second consecutive season, playing with both Derek Carr and Jarrett Stidham. 100 catches, 1,516 yards, 14 touchdowns, and now we wait to see who the quarterback is. I'm willing to bet on the talent, right? Especially if I might be getting a discount if Aaron Rodgers shows up there, right? So I will be investing in him. I think this is a pretty reasonable play. One more time, I'm investing in receiving talent earlier than I have in the past. I might have, how long ago would you have expected to be, I don't know, I'm going to say 8 running backs in the top 12? Not that long ago. I think we're all moving past that. We're all seeing the difference. And for the reasons I've outlined multiple times on this live stream on my Football Diehards radio program and at the website, FootballDiehards.com, you can go there and find information like this, what I'm about to say. Or you could hear it here when I say it, or on the radio when I say it there. Follow the investment of the NFL. What is the NFL putting its draft capital and cash into? Not running backs. Not running backs. We'll see. We'll see what Saquon Barkley gets. There's talk that he turned down a $12 million deal. We'll see what he gets. We'll see what my number 11 player here gets. Another Raider. Josh Jacobs. Come on down. Led the NFL in rushing, 1,653 yards. Also averaged 19 fantasy points per game, which was great. He is a free agent. I'm thinking he wants to be a Raider, and the Raiders want him to be a Raider. The money might be an issue. Same with Saquon Barkley, right? And so this could be I see you, YouTube for you. We'll see about that. We'll see. I mean, if he goes to another team, all this goes off the board, and maybe Jonathan Taylor moves into that spot. And maybe even the quarterback will make a difference. So there's a lot to watch for him over the next few months. So let's get to the last player here, number 12. Sorry, YouTube for you, Stephon Diggs. This guy is consistently super productive ever since he's joined Buffalo in 2020. Since that time, he co-leads the league in the entire NFL, and catches 338. tied with Adams. Second in targets, 484. Fourth in receiving yards, 4,189 receiving yards. Sixth in receiving touchdowns. He has 29 since we became a Bill, playing with Josh Allen. 2020 season, 1,535 yards. The 2022 season, 1,429 yards. Two of the highest single season outputs in Bills history. The 11 receiving touchdowns this past season tied the team's single season receiving touchdowns record with Bill Brooks from 11 in 1995. And also he played with Josh Allen. These are good things. So let's see. Taylor struggled after week 1. So I'll talk about Jonathan Taylor here a little bit. And I think you could make an argument for him maybe being in a more stable situation than Josh Jacobs, maybe being a more certain thing than Saquon Barkley to return to the Giants. I'm assuming for the purpose of this discussion right now that both those guys stay in place, Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. If they don't, things will change here. And it's possible Jonathan Taylor, and I'll acknowledge too on the consensus rankings, Jonathan Taylor's way higher than I have him. He's a number 3 overall. So let's compare this to the Fantasy Pros current consensus rankings, expert consensus rankings, ECR, they call those. Thanks, Fantasy Pros. Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley are their top 4. Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce, Jamar Chase, and Derrick Henry and Cooper Kupp, their next tier, followed by Kenneth Walker, who I do not have in there. Stephon Diggs, they have Devontae Adams at number 12. Tyreek Hill, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon outside the mix there. So plenty of room for debate. And so I'm just going to say Jonathan Taylor might rebound and just had off-season surgery, ankle surgery last week. Sounds like a minor cleanup. I've talked to Jonathan Taylor, who prides himself on availability, talked about being able to handle a heavy workload when I spoke to him coming into the league. And, he said, hey, people are maybe a little worried about the workload yet in college. I said, are you kidding me? That's what I do. I didn't miss a practice in college. He didn't miss a practice until this year. Right? So 6 wide receivers, 5 running backs, and a tight end in my way too early top 12. Put in the comments how stupid that is or not. Hit the like button if you like it. Hit the dislike button if you don't. I already hit the dislike button, so you don't have to. But you can. I'm okay with it. But anyway, I think these guys top 6, I think are pretty solid for me. I don't think there's going to be a lot of movement there. The second 6, there could be some movement there. Could be the receivers moving up. Could be some of the running backs moving down, which is why the receivers move up. Maybe Jonathan Taylor moves back in. Maybe somebody else. Maybe other players. So we'll be charting this over the course of the coming, I don't like to call it the off season, the alter season. There is no off season. Not at FootballDiehards.com, where we are a 365-day-a-year enterprise to reflect the NFL, which is a 365-day-a-year reality show. They can't get enough. We can't get enough of it. And we'll start setting these values, as I say, planting flags and stating cases. I planted flags. I have stated cases. I will continue to make cases over the course of the alter season. You can come back Saturday. We're going to go ahead and say 11 a.m. since I have an early radio show that day. 11 a.m. Eastern time. And we'll cover the mock draft that I just did on FootballDiehards.com on Monday night. Where do you see Joey Jacobs going if he doesn't resign with the Raiders? A lot of teams need running backs. I fear it'll be somewhere horrible, like Buffalo, or some team that really thinks they need one more piece and maybe that doesn't have the need that I think they need, that I think the desired outcome. I want him to stay in place. If he doesn't, I don't know if anyone's going to pay any of these running backs the money they expect or they want or maybe they even deserve because it's just not where the teams are investing. Scampers. I got a case of the Chubb flag plants. I'm with you there. I'm not against that. Nick Chubb. Fantastic. Matt Waldman agrees. Remember when Matt Waldman in the rookie scouting portfolio had Nick Chubb ahead of Saquon Barkley? Didn't work out as bad as everyone thought it was going to. We'll have Matt Waldman on this live stream at some point as well, too, along with John Love, and start discussing the rookie class. Go to FootballDiehards.com right now to check out Lob's quarterbacks, his first installment of the 2023 draft class. He'll be doing them by position. Does great work. Love following along, so we'll be enjoying that. We'll be covering the Super Bowl as well. We'll have fantasy information there. I already have a set of team notes up kind of a review of last week's games. I'll update those next week and kind of focus looking forward. Catch us on Football Diehards tomorrow night, Friday night, both nights at 10 p.m. We'll start doing team previews. We'll have beat writers on from a couple teams each night, as well as a fantasy guest. So plenty going on at the Football Diehards radio program on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. And Saturday we'll be on at 3 to 5. Look for us again next week, including a special pregame show for the Super Bowl. We'll cover those last few hours where it's like who are the lousy bands that nobody likes. I don't know. I like any of them. But we'll be going from 3 until 6 Eastern time, taking you up to the Super Bowl. Mike Dempsey and myself will have an array of guests. And by the way, Jeff Manns will be live from Radio Row this week on Sirius as well. So don't miss out on that. You'll catch me also on Monday and Tuesday next week doing Fantasy Dirt. There will be no escaping me in the coming days. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Thanks, Rob. Glad to see you here. Thanks, Dane, for coming. Appreciate everyone coming by. Mr. Scamper, Scott, for you, David Tyler. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone.